Show. Last night, the Falcons beat the Ravens. The Celtics beat the Heat. But we're going to start off right off the bat with the Ravens and the Falcons. What's a bigger game for the Ravens or the Falcons?
I think it's a big game for the Falcons. People that questioned them in the division, wondering if they were going to be able to hang around or if the Saints were going to come back. I mean, the Baltimore Ravens are a really good football team, and the Atlanta Falcons, they fell behind right there at the end of the game, a minute 5 seconds to go, and Matt Ryan and that offense drove the field, scored the game-winning touchdown. I think it is a big loss for the Baltimore Ravens because they've got the Pittsburgh Steelers half a game ahead of them in the division going into Sunday night's game against New England, but I think it's a bigger win for Atlanta.
I think it's a bigger loss for the Ravens. Just a simple fact. The Ravens' memo is defense. Been defense for the last umpteen years since Ray Lewis got there, and here they are. They have the lead with a minute left, and they just get tore down by Matt Ryan and Roddy White. They just went through it. No pressure, no nothing. That's a bigger loss there for the Ravens. Your MO is defense. Your MO is we punch people in the mouth. This is how we win football games. Late in games, we don't let people get a score on us. And that happened to them last night. The Falcons easily went down and got into field goal range, and then Roddy White maybe pushed off there on the game-winning touchdown. But still no offensive pass interference. Roddy White walks in. I think it's a bigger loss for the Ravens due to the fact, like you said, they're right there with the Steelers. Now the Steelers jump ahead of them. But also a big slap in the face to the Ravens defense, where maybe now folks aren't going to be so scared of them going down the road.
Yeah, I agree with you, especially in the first half of the game last night. The Baltimore Ravens just were not playing their style of football. The defense, like you said, Matt Ryan and Roddy White just seemed like he was open every time the Atlanta Falcons got the football. They drove the field well. Baltimore Ravens made a couple turnovers on special teams, which usually special teams and defense is a pretty strong point for the Baltimore Ravens. They got nothing going offensively until the second half of the game. And then, yeah, like you said, Baltimore Ravens, they're supposed to be that defensive-minded team, and whenever you go up with a minute left to go in the game, you expect that Baltimore defense to be able to hold that lead.
All right, switching a little gears, the biggest game in the NBA last night was the Celtics and the Heat. The Celtics beat down the Heat. The Heat never even had a lead in that game. Is it time to panic in Miami?
I don't think it's time to panic yet. I mean, they haven't even played 10 games in the season yet, but it is time for concern. If I'm Pat Riley, you do have concern. You went through this whole deal in the offseason, getting these players in, getting the big three. Everybody's looking at them going into the year as maybe the team to beat. And right now they've got a very mediocre record at 5-4. Even if you take away the 2 losses to the Boston Celtics, which Boston has just handled the Miami Heat in both those games, they still got 2 more losses, against the Hornets, and they lost also against the Utah Jazz in that comeback win. Going into the season, they said they were a defensive-minded team and that they were practicing more defensively than offensively with LeBron James and Chris Bosh. And so far this season, I haven't really seen a solid defensive squad there.
I totally agree with you. It's not really time to panic, but like I said yesterday, as I predicted that the Celtics would win that game, they are subset to good point guard play. You look at their losses, they lost to Chris Paul, and the Hornets, a good point guard. Twice to Rajon Rondo, a good point guard, and Deron Williams, a good point guard in Utah. There's 4 losses right there. All subject to good point guard play, because they don't really have a point guard to run the team. LeBron James is supposed to be that guy to facilitate. He doesn't seem to do that from watching the Heat team. They play it very well individually and in the fast break. When you play against good teams like the Celtics, you're not going to get a lot of fast break points. You're not going to be able to get in the fast break of the half court. They're not very good in the half court. So I definitely think it's not really quite time to panic, but it is time for concern. And speaking the taking the same game, how soon is Pat Riley going to step down, and is he going to start coaching this Heat, or is it Eric Spoelstra's job for the year?
I'm not going to say that it's his job for the year. I think it's in the back of everybody's head right now that Pat Riley is going to take over this team if they don't, show what their potential is, and if they don't win the games that they say, and they don't bring these championships to Miami like they said in the offseason. I don't think Pat Riley is close to making that move yet. I think maybe by the All-Star break, or maybe about 30-40 games in the season, if we're seeing the same results out of the Miami Heat that we are right now, I think maybe Pat Riley will start considering it.
In this game, if they're sitting about close to 500, I think after they've already played over 10 games right now. If they're another 10 games or so, maybe another 15 games, they're still sitting at 500. I think Pat Riley comes down and he may take control of this team. He did the same thing to Stan Van Gundy, and Stan Van did a little bit more with the Heat. Remember, they went to the Eastern Conference Finals the next year. Pat Riley still came down and coached that team to the championship. He might do the same thing there in Miami right now with Eric Spoelstra. Spoelstra hasn't really gotten out of the first round as a head coach. So he doesn't really have that experience, and it'll be interesting to watch. I think in the next, if they're sitting around 500, in the next about 15 to 20 games or so, Pat Riley will be stepping down and coaching this team.
And going from one old man coming back to another, Brett Favre tells the NFL Network that he is done after this season. Do you believe Brett this time?
It's hard to believe him because we played this game how many times the last few years. But you look at this team, you look at the body work. Brett Favre has taken some mean hits. They've had to cart him off the field a couple times. He's limped off the field a couple times. But you got to think until the season starts that Brett Favre's not under center, that he's gonna be there. I mean, he's been there for the last 20 seasons, and you just think that eventually, maybe this time maybe you believe him a little bit more. But I don't really believe him until the next season starts and he's not under center for an NFL team.
Yeah, I believe this is Brett Favre's last year. Whether he believes that or not right now, I believe it is. Like you said, his body is just getting to the point where he can't take it anymore. These seasons before, it was kind of whether he wanted to come back or not, but he was still able, and he was still coming back to the league, making plays. This year, he's just been taking shots week after week. It seems like a different part of his body is just getting injured. He's taking shots Monday, Tuesday mornings when he wakes up at 41 years old. He's got to be hurting, and I think, I don't think the Minnesota Vikings are going to win the Super Bowl this year, and I don't think Brett Favre's going to come back to play another season.
We like a little different on some games this week. The Bears-Vikings game being one of them. You like the Bears, and I like Minnesota. Why are you taking the Bears in this one?
I'm taking the Bears partially because of all this controversy that's going on right now in the Minnesota Vikings locker room. It's hard to go in and play these tough conference games against teams that you're looking up at in the conference when the coaching staff, and especially the head coach and the players, are just on totally different pages. They don't even want to be together. The Bears, they got good special teams, and they got good defense. Jay Cutler, he's kind of hit or miss, but I think the Bears defense can hold this Minnesota Vikings team down a little bit, and I think this Brad Childress deal is going to start showing some effect on the football field.
I think I'm going to go ahead and take Minnesota. The Bears don't have an offensive line. I think the Minnesota's defense will fire it in there. They'll get to Cutler. Cutler make his 3 picks or so, 2 picks a game that he usually throws. Minnesota will run the ball decently with Adrian Peterson. Brett Favre will make some nice plays down the stretch, and Minnesota will win this game.
One of the other NFL games that we picked differently this week, the Buffalo Bills and the Detroit Lions. You picked the Buffalo Bills in this one?
Yeah, take the Bills. I think they're due for one. Matthew Stafford's out for the Lions. Hill coming back from injury, played well before early in the season, but I think the Bills are finally due for a win. Just on a hunch. They played a lot of close games. They played close last week against the Bears. They played close 2 weeks ago against the Chiefs. This game's at home in Buffalo. I'm going to go ahead and take the Bills to get their first win of the season.
Yeah, I agree with you. The Bills are due, but I don't think they're going to get it this week. Stafford is out for the year, but Sean Hill coming back, he played good. He played well with this offense, and he's played about just as many games this year as Stafford has. And I think this Detroit Lions offense is much improved, and I think they're going to be a little bit too much for the Buffalo Bills to handle. Then also moving on to college football, kicking off actually tonight with the Boise State and Idaho game. Do you see any of the top 4 teams losing this week?
I don't see any top 4 team losing. I think Auburn is a little bit on upset alert. I think Georgia will give them a good game. The only tough game that any of the undefeateds have this week going in. All the controversy that surrounds Cam Newton, I think that could affect Auburn. I think Georgia's been playing pretty well, but I think Auburn will win.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think none of the top 4 teams are going to lose this week. Auburn does have the toughest game at Georgia, but I think Auburn will be able to handle Georgia. I'm not going to say easily, but pretty easily. I don't think it's going to be that close of a game. I think the top 4 in the BCS stays the same going into next week.
All right, tune into Facebook. We got all our picks posted up. You can comment, leave us some comments, or post your own picks. And if you can beat me or Craig, we'll give you a shout out on the air. I'm Nick Bodkins.
And I'm Craig Coger. Thanks for tuning in. And remember to email any comments and questions to BnK sportstalk@hotmail.com.